I think we'll get started now. So, morning everyone. Welcome to this supply chain webinar. My name's Charles. I'm a senior group relationship manager at the Greater Birmingham Chambers of Commerce, and it's great to see that the sun has reappeared today, and let's hope that continues during this unprecedented time. I hope everybody is safe and well. As I say, during this unprecedented time, what we've tried to do at the Chamber of Commerce is adapt as best we can to help keep business moving. So there's tons and tons of really useful resources online via our website, through to webinars like today and through to online digital chats. So now more than ever, what we're saying is keep in contact with us. Visit those resources on the web page. If you're not sure, again, contact us and we can direct you to the right place. There's lots of useful and helpful guides, lots of webinars coming up in addition to this one today. So yeah, please do keep in touch and make use of all the resources that we've made available. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guests on this webinar today. As I say, this is a supply chain webinar in a post-COVID-19 world. I'm joined by Ben, who's head of commercial at St Joseph Homes, and I'm also joined by his colleague Kulvinder, who's a supply chain manager at St Joseph Homes. And St Joseph have been chamber members for a couple of years now. They were actually sponsoring our annual dinner, which was supposed to take place in March, just before lockdown sort of set in, and of course we've had to postpone that now. Just one point on that, actually, whilst we're covering it, we are now doing a fully online version of the awards dinner. So please do look out for further information on that one. But in terms of St Joseph, as I say, we've been working with them over the last couple of years. They're really committed to the region and developing it further. They've got a couple of projects on at the moment at Snow Hill Wharf and Glasswater locks. And I think today is an opportunity to hear from both Ben and Kulvinder on working with St Joseph and working within the regional supply chain. As I said before, unprecedented times at the moment, and I think large-scale projects, both private and public, are kind of going to be key at this time to keep the region moving. So without further from me, I'd like to hand over to Ben.
Brilliant. Thank you, Charles. Thank you for having myself and Kulvinder on, and also thank you to everyone who's taken a bit of time out of their lunch break to come and listen to my dulcet tones for the next half an hour. Kulvinder's already been introduced, but he's here. He's our supply chain manager, and will be on hand to help answer any questions that you might have at the end of this presentation. I chose this title because not only is a supply chain an incredibly important part of any developer's arsenal, but even more so in today's society, in today's supply chain that has been quite heavily restricted and delayed by COVID-19 and all the impact that has, that everyone who's watching this at the moment is more than familiar with. I think it's more important than ever that developers have a strong and long-lasting relationship with all tiers in their supply chain, and hopefully over the next 30 minutes we can talk about and discuss just ways in which that supply chain can be managed and maintained and relationships grown. If I just move on to the next slide, then just a bit about us in general. As Charles mentioned in the introduction, St Joseph is the newest branch of the BERKELEY Group. So you may not have heard of us, St Joseph, but chances are you will have heard of the BERKELEY Group. And we were established in 2016 off the back of what was a long thought process from our chairman, Tony Pidgley. The BERKELEY Group is predominantly London and South East based. That's where the revenues are. But Birmingham has long been on his radar. It's a city that everyone here will attest is having a massive amount of regeneration, a massive amount of construction going on. There's plenty to see when you walk around the city centre. There's loads of really impressive schemes that are going up. And obviously HS2 is coming along in a few years, and that's going to help revenues go up. So it's a city that has a massive amount of potential, and just over the past few years is beginning to realise that potential, and the Berkeley Group are keen to have a piece of that. So there's a few stats on the screen there about the Berkeley Group in general. I'm not going to go through them all, but St Joseph looks at Birmingham, and we work down the M40 corridor. We've got a site as far south as Wallingford, and in a couple of slides' time, I'll show you some pretty pictures of the development that we've got down there. But because the Berkeley Group is so London focused and predominantly is London based, one of mine and Kulvinder's chief tasks in this early stage of what is essentially a fledgling division, having been only going for a few years, is to build some really strong, long-lasting relationships with a supply chain, and a local supply chain at that. We want to make the most of the talent and the skills that Birmingham has got to offer. And so we're here really to try and develop those relationships and not rely too heavily on those tried and tested Berkeley contractors and suppliers that are down based in London. So just a couple of slides then to just show off the developments that we've got going on in Snowhill Wharf and GLASSWATER locks and HIGHCROFT. So Snowhill Wharf is our Birmingham-based site, which is up and running. It's in the gun quarter of the city, just behind St Chad's Cathedral, down on Shadwell Street. And you've got 420 units across 5 blocks, the tallest of which is about 21 stories. And it boasts a cinema, it's got a gym, it's got residence lounges, concierge, and so on. It's a really high quality development with some lovely landscaped spaces right on the edge of a canal. It's a really great location to build our debut site, our first development. And we're looking to hand over the first block of apartments probably early next year. It was meant to be this year, but COVID, as I'm sure you can appreciate, has pushed that back slightly. We've also got a development on the horizon in Birmingham, down by Curzon Street in the east side part of the city, right near the new proposed HS2 development, and it's called GLASSWATER locks. It's got about 753 units at the moment. It's got the same kinds of residential facilities that we discussed at Snowhill Wharf, and it's got a nice 37-storey tower, which will add to the skyline of Birmingham. And that's something that we at St Joseph are really passionate about, not just adding jobs to the city and adding homes to the city, but also making a real impact on the skyline of a city which, as I said, is going through a massive phase of growth and improvement and regeneration. And we're really keen to be a part of that. But never want to turn down an opportunity. We've got a development a bit further south down in Wallingford, which is just between Reading and Oxford, which is a more traditional low-rise housing scheme. So there's about 555 units at the moment on this site. We are looking to improve on that, and we've just started building the first phase. So we're looking for a sales launch September, October time. Some really beautiful houses where we've really paid some quite close attention to detail. We haven't just gone on a site and crammed it full of as many houses as we can possibly can, but we've got really considered phasing and really considered accommodation mix on there. And this site has got balancing ponds, it's got sports pitches, it's got allotments, it's got a large central square, massive realms of public open space, and eventually it'll have a school as well. So we're really keen as St Joseph and as part of the Berkeley Group to really enhance local surroundings. And for us, it's all about placemaking. It's not just about turning up to site, building houses as quickly as possible, and then leaving again. And we know that that comes as a result of a very strong and robust supply chain. So let's go on and start talking about the supply chain itself. Now, everyone on the call watching this webinar will know about the importance of supply chain, and we as developers, we like to think of ourselves as the top of the tree. We get really big egos when people talk about us as tier 1 developers and tier 1 contractors, But the problem with that is at the top of the tree has all these items below it. It's got the branches, it's got the trunk, it's got the root. And if one of those things fails, then the top of the tree will fall and crumble. And that's what the supply chain is. The supply chain is everything that holds us up as a developer and makes sure that we can do our job effectively and build to the right level of specification and quality. And that's why even in the best of times, it's really important for any responsible developer to invest in a really strong and robust supply chain to make sure that all of those links within that chain are as strong and as well maintained as possibly can be. Because we know that times are changing now, and times have changed massively. And it's not the developers with all the power in inverted commas anymore. It's the suppliers who have got that freedom of choice, that ability to focus on the developers and the contractors who support them, who look after them, who make sure they get paid on time and make sure that they are communicated with effectively. And what we want to do is be that developer of choice for the whole supply chain, right from the root to the top. And I think a lot of developers, and maybe ourselves included, have probably been a bit guilty of neglecting that in the good times. And I've had a few suppliers mention to me just how funny it is that all of a sudden these developers are their best friends and their best mates when things go south. What we want to do is build a supply chain and develop one which goes well in the bad times, but also goes well in the good. We treat each other with respect and a mutual partnership. So let's go on to how we can properly support a local supply chain. And there's a few elements that go into a strong supply chain. And the first one is one that we've just mentioned. It's about building long-lasting partnerships. And so every word in that sentence is really important. It's about building something. It's about starting at the bottom, building trust, building a relationship, building a partnership where both sides benefit. It's no good for us just to get people to sign a contract and then hide behind that contract. It's about developing a partnership, as I put on the notes on the right there, which benefits all the parties. And it sounds straightforward, but you wouldn't believe how many times that very basic element of a strong supply chain gets overlooked by developers who, as I say, potentially have quite inflated egos. Another key to supporting a local supply chain is to have regular and clear communication with the supply chain right throughout the build process. So it's not about calling up the supplier and saying we need trusses or timber or whatever it might be on such and such a date. It's about getting the supply chain involved at a really early stage to make sure that the supply chain is aware of what our plans are. They can inform us about lead-in times. They can inform us about any kind of supply chain demands or delays that there are within the industry at the moment. Because it's a two-way street. All of this is a two-way street. It's the supplier, it's the developer telling the supplier what's going on and having these regular updates and regular engagement throughout the whole process, right from the very first tender to the very last plot being completed. But it also goes the other way as well. It's about the supplier telling us when a material is not available, when we're going to struggle to get hold of certain things, whether Brexit or COVID or whatever it is having an impact on our ability to deliver that site to the quality that we like. And I saw a stat recently, and I don't know how true it is, but I saw a stat that in 70% of cases, the first a site knows about a material shortage is when it's not delivered to site. And so we need to know about these things much sooner. And by doing that, we need to make sure that we involve the supply chain as early as possible. Next is design management. So we talked about getting the supply chain involved as early as possible, and that's not just to talk to them about procurement and about pricing and so on, but it's about getting them involved in the design of a scheme. Because we never get the design right first time. We're always going to have design development. There's always going to be changes that need to be made. But with the supplier's help, we can catch those changes early days. We're not experts really in anything as a developer. We just manage a site from start to finish. It's the supply chain that is the expert in each of their individual areas of expertise. So we would be remiss to not draw down upon that expertise early days and get the supply chain involved in the design, because design changes, whilst they are inevitable, it causes waste, and it doesn't just cause physical waste on site in terms of timber being chucked in a skip or plasterboard being chucked in a skip or whatever it might be, but it causes waste in terms of time and resource and effort in understanding what the change is and then having to react to that change and then informing everybody about that change. It would be much better if we just got supply chain involved early days, and we can work together to come up with a design that works and is feasible and manageable. The next is active site leadership. All of these things that go before in design management and communication and so on can easily fall down if you've got a project manager or a site manager on site that isn't very good at communicating with the supplier. So it's about the site manager clearly giving the supplier call-off dates and sticking to them as much as possible in these strange times when everyone's program is very, very fluid and we are reacting to market situations. And it's about giving the supplier enough notice as well. We're not, whilst we may make the occasional error and have to call in a favor, we want to be able to let the supply chain know well in advance when their delivery needs to arrive on site. So it's firm call-off dates in good time, and no ghost orders, not just raising an order for 1,000 packs of timber or whatever it might be just to get ourselves in the pecking order, because that doesn't help either of us, and it certainly doesn't help the supplier, who may well be on allocation as part of the COVID-19 reaction to the material shortages and so on. So it's making sure that we know what quantity we're ordering and when we need it for. And all these things sound very basic. There's nothing new here. There's nothing particularly revolutionary or innovative. It's simple, straightforward things that quite often, unfortunately, just get overseen and overlooked in the day-to-day madness of building a site. The next is realistic pricing. There was a report done by the Department for Business Innovation and Skills about 7 years ago, back in 2013, and that said that there are two main factors in a supplier's price point when they are quoting for a job for a developer. The first is level of demand, obviously, but second is the supplier's eagerness to work with that developer. And it's one of those things that we all know about. A supplier's price point, they might overprice or underprice depending on how well or how much they want to work with that developer. But we want to make sure that when we're raising our orders with suppliers, that we're not screwing people down to the last penny. That's a short-term gain. We might facilitate one site with that price point, but the suppliers are never going to want to work with us again, and we're not building those long-lasting partnerships that we talked about. And so we need to agree a figure again with the supplier that benefits both parties, that both parties are comfortable with, that enhances that relationship, that builds on that relationship, and allows both parties just to go about their business and build a site that works smoothly. And then finally, what a lot of suppliers might be number one on their list is simply fair and prompt payment. It's not withholding money to protect our cash flow and actually pushing damage further down the line to suppliers who might not have the amount of cash in the bank that a developer has. It's about paying people on time. It's about paying them fairly for works that have actually been done. And it wouldn't surprise you to know that in that Department for Business Innovation and Skills report, which I mentioned a few minutes ago, this was the number one factor in supporting a strong supply chain. All of these things before it are great, and developers should be utilizing them every step of the way. But if a supplier can't function and it can't run and it doesn't have a business because it's not being paid, then everything that goes before it is pretty much defunct. And so what we've been looking at, as many other developers have, is ways that we can support our supply chain through paying for materials early, or having material deliveries early so that we can release that payment and release that cash to the supplier, or vesting if the material is particularly high risk and there's a lot of delays and restrictions on that material, maybe vesting some materials to secure the allocation for us, but also ensure that the supplier gets payment themselves. And so there's a lot to take in there for developers, and as I say, none of it is innovative or particularly groundbreaking, but a lot of things get dropped by developers and contractors, and they may not be looking after or carefully looking at all the items that we've just discussed. So what are the quick wins that a developer can carry out and facilitate in the next few days, in the next couple of weeks, that can help support their supply chain and develop those relationships? And it's these three simple things. Firstly, just call your key suppliers, ring them up, have a discussion with them, have the chat, ask about any materials that are currently experiencing delays or supply restrictions. Ask them how it's going on site. How are they finding the site management team? Are they getting call-offs on time? Are they getting correct call-offs? Are they getting any call-offs at all? Just have that discussion with your key suppliers. It's bound to be beneficial, and it's bound to reap rewards for both sides. The second thing to do is issue the latest information and make it really clear. Any kind of development will have design information and specification information drip fed throughout the process, and it's always worth every now and then just having a bit of a catch up and tying up loose ends and making sure all the latest information is issued in one go to the supplier so that everyone is working on the same page. And then finally, of course, is clearing those pending invoices, those ones that have been sat in your tray for ages that you just haven't got round to, or that maybe you've got a query on. Just pick them up, resolve those queries, get those invoices paid, and keep that supply chain moving and keep the wheels greased, because we're all here at the end of the day to build a nice product, to make money, and to develop the city. Now there is a poll, and I'll see if I can get this to work, just to gauge your feedback really as attendees as to what you believe is the most important contributing factor to a robust supply chain. So if it's come up on your screen, please feel free to drop a few votes. I'm being told to close it and put it up again. So let's see if this works. So hopefully the poll has come up on your screen, and just drop your votes in there if you could. We'll just leave that for a few seconds. All right, we'll give it another 10 seconds. Okay. So it looks like clear communication and fair and prompt payment have come out on top, and it doesn't surprise me. Those results are what I was expecting. It's the two cornerstones to any kind of developer, supplier, contractor relationship, is making sure that everyone's talking to each other, that it's a two-way street, and that people are getting paid on time. So thank you for contributing to that poll. And that is really it. Those are our details, mine and Kulvinder's. That was back when I was able to have a haircut. Who knows when those days will come back again. But feel free to get in touch with us if you are a supplier, if you just want to know some more information, if you're just interested to find out more about us or about St Joseph and the kind of things we do. Please just shout up. Our details are there on the screen. Thank you. Back to Charles.
That's great. Thank you so much for that insight, Ben. Really really comprehensive overview there. I think at this stage now, there's an opportunity for everybody to ask questions. You can submit questions via the chat. You can type away and fire a question. I think we've got a couple coming in as we speak, actually. So I'll turn to those. Just one quick question from me. And again, we'll make sure we share details after this, should anybody have any follow-up questions with Ben or Kulvinder. But from a perspective of kind of working with St Joseph Homes and the Berkeley Group, is there a kind of area that suppliers can register?
Yes, if that was a question. There's nowhere on the website where you can register, but if you drop myself or Kulvinder an email or a phone call, then we can take you through the process of getting set up on our system, and we can have a chat with you guys and find out what the next steps are. Again, but I'm going to just put my contact details in the chat, just so people can get in touch with us.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Ben. Kulvinder, if I could just bring you in at this stage. Yeah, sorry, I was just saying that from your perspective, Kulvinder, how do you see things shaping up as we kind of come out of lockdown from a supply chain perspective?
Just really echoing what Ben was saying, we really need to speak to our suppliers and forward plan. If we can give them an idea of production, they can plan manufacturing, because obviously they're coming out of lockdown probably at 20, 30, 40%. They can increase their labor force depending on what the production is. So we ask our site agents to make sure that they call off the materials well in advance, often 3 to 4 months in advance, and therefore it gives the manufacturers plenty of time to forward plan.
Fantastic, thank you, Kulvinder. And any, I know you haven't got a crystal ball to predict these things, but of course there's the little matter of Brexit on the horizon. Again, any kind of specific thoughts or views on how that may impact things?
Charles, your point reference Brexit. Yes, we did some initial research on Brexit, and we're looking at Plan B just in case we can't get our materials from China or Asia. So we are trying to work our way around that. But with Brexit being delayed, now we've got COVID, so we need to get over this hurdle first. And it's not going to. The supply chain lead times are going to increase. I've been told easily double. So if we had a 2-month lead time, that would quite easily double to four now, because it's just getting back out of lockdown.
Yeah, so kind of good, strong, like some of the points Ben's already mentioned through the presentation, good, strong local connections and communication at the heart of that sounds to be a key thing. Again,
I'm in contact with my supply chain on a fortnightly basis. I ask for their company status, and if we feel that we've got a problem, then we try and manage the problem out. And working with the suppliers helps us to do that, because it's that constant communication, which is number one. Great, yeah, that's the point I was just discussing in terms of the communication aspect. Any other questions from our delegates today? Please do type those in the box if there are any. I think it's been a really useful insight. Apologies for the connectivity issues. Hopefully everybody's found it really useful and insightful. Thanks to both Ben and Kulvinder for joining me today. Any closing remarks from, well, Ben, perhaps come to you first.
No, thank you for having us on. As I say, I said a couple of times in the presentation, none of what I've said is particularly groundbreaking. It's basics, really, but unfortunately, it's basics that quite often get overlooked quite regularly by developers who are purely intent on just building something for highest profit at lowest build cost. And so hopefully this whole COVID situation has helped us realise who the key workers are and who the most important people are, not just in general public life, but also in the supply chain. So hopefully this is the start of a lot of long-lasting relationships.
That's great. And from yourself as well, Kulvinder, anything to add there?
Yes, Charles, we are very, very keen to work with the local suppliers, want to improve our database, asking whoever wants to work with us, contact us, we'll be in touch, we'll come down to your place, factory visit, or what have you, to see, if you fit the criteria. I know you guys want to work with the Berkeley Group.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kulvinder. So that final point there, if anybody is looking to discuss working and collaborating with St Joseph and supplying, they can get in touch with those details that you've put in the chat via the email directly. Is that right?
Just drop us an email. We'll come straight back to you.
Brilliant. Well, thank you again both for coming on this webinar and joining me today. I look forward to any further questions, and again, we will send a recording of this round and include the contact details should anybody wish to pick up the conversations with Ben and Kulvinder from today. So again, thank you both for joining. Thanks for everybody that's joined the webinar today. Keep in touch, keep in contact, and stay safe. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.